peoples. Tonight, let's go in here and let's talk about the banking system a little bit. Ran into some old friends last night. We got to talking about the financial system and a lot of the issues that are going on, like I try to talk about on these videos and some of the stuff that's going on. So just bring you up to speed on some of this if you aren't already aware. Apparently, Wells Fargo continues to have all kinds of issues going on internally and taking advantage of customers. And the people I ran into last night, they were speaking of Wells Fargo and how they used to be a pretty big fan of Wells Fargo. And here recently, there's a couple things that happened that I'm going to share with you that's turned them off to Wells Fargo. I don't know if you are aware of the fake accounts that were being created with Wells Fargo, but they were setting up accounts for people that people didn't even know about, and they were creating these accounts, and somebody else was then ended up using them, and then Wells Fargo, apparently they tried to deny that they were doing any of this, and long story short, it turned out they had created them internally. Apparently somebody internally was getting a bonus for every account that was being created, so a pretty bad ethical process there. Anyway, that's not really the point of the story tonight, but that's just a side note on Wells Fargo and what's going on with them internally. So they can't seem to get their processes and ethics straightened out internally. So enough of that. Anyway, my friends, they were talking about Wells Fargo and how they'd done business with them forever, and they'd made several moves as of late, and they were enjoying the fact that they could keep all their business basically under one roof with their savings, their checking, their home mortgages, and all of that types of stuff. Well, here recently, I guess they moved out of Denver and moved to another community, and I guess they did pretty well on making some profit on their house in Denver. And shocker, that housing area is, in my opinion, in a huge bubble, and it's going to pop, and I think there's going to be a lot of people suffering in that market because they will have bought at the height of the market, and I don't think those prices may or may not ever recover because it's in an overinflated, overheated bubble at this point in time. Anyway, they'd made some pretty good equity on their house. They sold it, and they were moving to another area, so they wanted to take all their equity they'd made on their house, and they wanted to put it down on the new house they were buying somewhere else. So they convinced Wells Fargo, or so they thought, they convinced them that they would want to put all this money down on their house so they could eliminate the chance of even getting PMI. So they convinced them, and then they go to closing. And of course, Wells Fargo hadn't cooperated, and they hadn't done what they'd asked. And when they asked them to fix it, they were like 24 hours ahead of time. They were requesting a statement, make sure that closing papers look like they were in order. Like I always suggest, you want to pull a copy of your closing statement before you actually arrive. That way you can fix some of this stuff if it's not correct. Well, they pulled the papers, and long story short, they hadn't done what they had asked. They had not applied all this equity. They wanted to force them back into making PMI, so Wells Fargo obviously could make more money off of them, and that is not at all what they wanted, and they were pretty furious about it. So they were explaining their frustration with them. And then to make long story short, they were sharing with me another example of a credit card issue. And I have recently shared some of my issues with credit cards. I don't think they're very secure. I don't think they're doing a good job of putting together any type of security on credit cards that makes us feel like we can use them and they're trustworthy and etc. That little security chip in there is basically a joke because you can have people walk by you with the magical capture device and it will scan your card and steal all the information on it as they walk by. So I don't think the financial institutions have done a very good job of policing all of this. Of course, if you've listened to any of my other stuff talking about this, you'll know that I think it's a patched up system of Band-Aids, bubble gum, and duct tape trying to keep it all together because all of this stuff was designed way back before digital even existed and they didn't even know what the internet was. So they keep trying to patch it back together and keep it running because it really doesn't work. That's why I think we need to go to a crypto system, like I always advocate. That way you have control over it, and you send them funds where you need to send them, when you need to send them, and nobody can go in there if you set your accounts up properly and compromise your info. Anyway, long story short, they were telling me about their credit cards. So apparently one of their credit cards got compromised. So they caught it early on, and they noticed that $2,000 worth of merchandise had been shipped to a UPS store clear down in Florida. So they caught wind of it. They called up Wells Fargo and pointed it out to them. And Wells Fargo says, "Oh, well, yeah, your account looks like it's been compromised. Let's shut that account down, and we'll issue a new card." And so I guess about a week later, they shipped them the new cards. So they got the new cards going, and everything they thought was going fine. They went in and they checked their accounts a few weeks later, and those accounts had been compromised somehow. And there were miscellaneous charges on there that were not legitimate. So they proceeded to call them up and tell them that there was a problem again with those cards. And at that point in time, Wells Fargo proceeded to argue with them that they had done something wrong. And it's like, wow, I cannot believe that Wells Fargo would even go down that path and try and argue with them that they had done something wrong when this patched up system doesn't really give me any sense of security, nor does it, I guess, instill any types of values in our system. But anyway, so they were in a dispute with Wells Fargo. I told them, I said, I think I would have called them up and told them that I'm moving all my accounts away from you, and since you guys don't seem to care about my business. And here again, it comes back to, I think it's a broken system in the age that we're in right now. It's a digital world, so I think we need a new product, which is basically the cryptos, and I like to say it's Internet 2.0, because the cryptos are just another layer running on the Internet. It's not like it's really a whole lot of anything that's really different. It's just another layer, and it's all put together with cryptography. And if you do the research on the right crypto coins, then you know which ones to put your monies into, and if you know how to secure them, then you can put them away, and you don't have to worry about them. You don't have to worry about anybody getting into your accounts and hacking into them and stealing your funds. So anyway, that's the video for tonight. Hope you guys have a good one, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.